I am too, so you know that's okay.
I saw Eric pulling in, so he should be walking in.
Yeah.
Is that all on here?
I think so.
Yeah, it hasn't integrated
Nice.
in with the building.
High tech.
Yeah, I like.
Okay, test running.
I was
Yeah.
thinking the
Thank
same.
I was just like trying to read through it and. I need to write stuff down.
Right. Yeah, it's better to have it in front of us.
Yeah. They were on a short leash, I remember that. Because they had to bring some cheapo HVAC guy in. Because none of the local guys would work on this. So they were busy. Some of it was really pushing. And I remember, and when we were in there, I could see cracks in the driveway.
Hey, just so everybody knows, we're live.
Is it 6 o'clock?
Yes.
Okay. Well, I'll take Blaine's word for it that at 6 o'clock, we'll call the meeting to order. Scott, would you please call roll?
Sure. Gary Bowser, Linda Dunbar, David Maston,
Present.
Veronica Petrel, Tim Trigg, Kevin Verhoff,
Here.
Matt Welker,
Here?
Eric Wolf, and Jeff Mayhem. Here. There's always a space. We do have a quorum.
Okay. Very good. Okay, next item, election of officers and appointment of secretary. What all officers do we have other than presiding officer and secretary?
Chair, vice chair, secretary.
Well, let's start with secretary. I'll make the motion to nominate Scott as secretary.
I'll second it.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you, Scott, for your willingness to serve.
All in gold.
Didn't even give him a chance.
Okay, do I have a motion for a presiding officer?
Is that you?
I think that is currently old Dave, yes.
I make a motion that Dave remains presiding officer.
I'll second that.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. So we need a vice presiding officer? We have a motion?
Who is it now?
I don't know. I didn't know we had
I
one.
think it had been Eric Wolf. You can double check.
I don't know if that's in there or not.
I think it was you, man.
I think it was.
Is that the nomination?
I don't think so.
Is that a motion?
No? No.
Well, maybe Kevin would work.
I'm going to nominate Kevin.
I'll second Kevin.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you, Kevin.
Thank you. Now you have to show up to all the meetings.
You don't miss many, so that's good.
No, that's important, you know. Showing up is half the battle, you know. So, okay. Now we need to confirm our appointment to the BZA. And I'm not sure if that's Commissioner Pejrel or who that is.
That was Veronica, right?
Yeah, well, that's,
Is that
Veronica.
our appointment to the BZA?
Yes, Veronica is the appointment to the museum.
Okay.
I would renominate Veronica.
I would second that. We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? We have our appointment to the BZA. Next item would be public petitions and comments. Do we have any public petitions and comments? Okay. We'll move on to approval of minutes from 11/24/25, which by my reckoning is about 3 months ago. Are there any additions or corrections to the minutes from November 24th, 2025? Hearing none, do we have a motion to accept?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Approval of minutes. Old business, none. New business, we had one petition that was on for January removed, so we just have one. P26-01, petitioner, City of Greencastle, requesting review of new comprehensive plan draft and recommendation to City Council for adoption. Well, there's Eric.
Want me to
So-
go here or just wait?
Excuse me?
Sure, would you want me just to wait for Eric to come in? Okay, we can just, sure. Hi, evening.
Once he settles in, you...
They said they'd save the best for last there.
Thank you.
You're not spending time to get nominated.
He was waiting
We're
outside
talking about
looking.
nominating you for
You were
everything
voted
since you
into
weren't
every
here.
office.
Perfect.
And the bake sale.
Motion to adjourn.
Okay, I presume that we're from American Structure Point?
Yes,
We're
yep.
going to have a presentation.
Yes.
And we will turn the floor over to you.
Okay, great, thank you. I'm Rachel Cardis. I've been the project manager for the comprehensive plan for the past 2 years. It's very exciting to be here tonight and watch this come to fruition and bring it before the Plan Commission. We've provided just a brief presentation. I know you guys have had a copy of the draft and had an opportunity to go through it, but I would just like to kind of go through kind of the culmination of the public input process, what are some of the key outcomes and some of the implementation and the goals that were taken from the process. And just saying that I really enjoyed the last 2 years working with the city, and I'm very proud of this product that we put together. There we go. Under our contract, kind of our phases for the project were 3 phases. We do educate, explore, and empower. And I'll go through the educate. That was really for us to learn about Greencastle. We did a thorough data analysis, retail gap assessment. We did a lot of existing condition market assessment, kind of in the preliminary stages of the project. And then we were able to kind of work with the public to be able to say, let's do a public survey. We did outreach at, we had a football game. We also had different opportunities to get out in the public and hear what they had to say on different various topics, whether it was land use, economic development, housing, natural, any kind of natural parks and trails and economic development. So that kind of occurred in the first phase of the project. In phase 2, this is kind of my favorite phase of the project. We were able to work with the steering committee on several occasions. We drafted the vision for what the goals are going to be for the community. How do you achieve that vision? What implementation strategies that you put forth? And I'll go into critical path strategies. Structure Point prides themselves on the ability to leave you with almost like a playbook. You're not just going to have a plan that's got goals without steps to be able to achieve them. We go through a thorough analysis to give you step-by-step on how to achieve the implementation strategies. We also go into kind of cost assessment and responsible parties. So we'll get into that a little bit later in the presentation. Phase 3 is where we're at now, into the adoption phase. So we've gone through the steering committee on several occasions, got the blessing to bring it before the Plan Commission for forward a recommendation to the council, and we're working together to kind of look through any kind of revisions, any kind of map, future land use revisions over probably the last month or so. And so that's what phase 3 has been about. When you go through the plan, just a quick overview for those that are in the audience, what's in a comprehensive plan and what it guides, and some of the main components that you'll find are land use, economic development, transportation, housing, placemaking, parks and recreation, public services, and utilities, and as previously mentioned, the critical path strategies and implementation. Some of the community engagement events that were held in that first phase that I talked about with Educate, we had an open house. This is Love Your New High School. There was a grand opening. We were able to set up an open house and try to gain public comment as people were trying to explore the new high school after the remodel. So that was a great event that was held. That was back in July of 2024, kind of before school started. Event number 2, Greencastle City Hall, we had stakeholder interviews. We had a 2-day session of a collective group, and we had business owners, retirees, nonprofits, industry and employers, medical care providers, city employees, and board members. So we had stakeholder interviews where they were like key one-on-one sessions where they were collective groups of individuals in each one of those sessions. Event 3 was October 11th. We did a Greencastle football game. This was very exciting. It was a Friday night game. It was a home game. We set up interactive boards. We were able to talk to public. We had the mayor and lawyer were kind enough to kind of wrangle people in, so we got some more public that way, and they were kind of on the scout for us. Regarding the public survey, we had 482 responses. Some of the main topics, if you would have took the survey, or maybe some of you did, what are Greencastle's top challenges? What were some of their top assets? What was the most desirable changes for the future? What was the temperature and kind of what guiding future growth and development? Did you see annexation? Was it more redevelopment, infill development? Asking kind of those growth preference questions. Housing preferences, parks and recreation, downtown growth and needs, commuter and job patterns, and then we had kind of an open comment section where you could fill that in. Some of the prominent themes that came out of the public survey are community identity and small town character, downtown visibility and support for local businesses, parks, trails, and outdoor recreational assets were at the top of the list in that survey. Housing affordability and need for diverse options, that was a very key one that was brought to the top of the survey. Transportation infrastructure, connectivity and walkability, more spaces for young people to hang out outside of school, placemaking, and balanced growth with preservation. So that was really kind of that first phase with educate. That was, we kind of combined the data of what we gathered as far as just looking at census data, market data, retail data, and doing that assessment. And we combined it with the public input to say, here's what we know from the data, this is what we heard from the public, and how those compared. We took that back before the steering committee, and then we started to kind of, form and shape and mold into what the vision was going to be, what the goals were going to be, and especially as we embarked on the future land use map and creating, we had 3 different scenarios with the steering committee, and we started with kind of a least aggressive, a moderately aggressive, and then a kind of a highly aggressive or assertive approach to growth and development, and we came into one future land use map. This goes into kind of what the finality of that second phase of the project is. Critical path strategies, like as I stated before, this is one of Structure Point's most pride points with their plans, is that we're able to provide you with the playbook when this is adopted and when the staff has to undertake this and say, okay, it's been a year, what have we achieved? What do we want to achieve in year 1? What do we want to achieve as a mid-range goal from years 2 to 4? What do we want to achieve as a 4 to 6 year long-term goal? And so we went through that exercise to understand what is the prioritization of which type of initiatives for the city. So as you can see here, I know this is a little bit blurry, but this is in your plan. You can see that there's a strategy that's, the narrative and is denoted here. We provide the action steps, the parties to be involved, what are the related goal categories of the plan itself, what's the term, so is this a critical priority, is this a year 1 priority, is this a 1 to 3 year priority, 3 to 5, and then we always have cost estimation. We have 11 different disciplines at American Structure Point, so we're able to kind of rely on our experts to say if they were to undertake this gateway signage, what's an average cost for this? Or if they're going to undertake a UDO, what does this cost? And so we're very good at providing kind of the framework for the estimated cost. Some of the key critical path strategies of the plan, number 1 under land use, is to utilize planning tools like sub-area plans and overlay zones to promote adaptive reuse and infill development. Critical path strategy number 2 is still with under land use, create flexibility within land development ordinances to allow for transitional areas where lots may be combined and development standards can be relaxed to allow for the redevelopment of underutilized or abandoned properties. Critical strategy number 3 under urban decay strategy was to prioritize prevention and action steps towards urban decay. Critical path strategy number 4 is neighborhood commercial development. Develop a neighborhood commercial zoning district that allows for residential pedestrian scale commercial development, geared towards pedestrian access and everyday needs. So you're not parking, you're not driving to it. It's your local, whether it's grocery store, dry cleaner, or just your local service. Critical path strategy number 5 under housing, modify development standards to allow for higher density housing types, including triplexes, townhomes, residential zoning districts. So this was a heavy discussion during the whole course of the project is how do we make attainable housing? How do we make affordable housing? I know it's becoming more and more challenging. Everything's becoming, as far as construction and being cost prohibitive. So kind of one of the strategies to try to help with the market issue at this time with the housing is to look at the ordinance to allow for some more density and flexibility in the development approval process. Critical path strategy number 6, placemaking, identify primary and secondary routes in and out of the city to install gateway signage packages, welcoming residents and visitors as they enter. And lastly, critical path strategy number 7 under public utilities and services, develop utility service capacity maps that will identify areas where utility infrastructure may be improved or expanded upon as the city grows. So I know I kind of covered on that a little bit, briefly, and I wanted to give enough of a glimpse, and I know each one of you, I want to leave most of the time for any kind of questions or, any thoughts on the plan itself. Garrett and I are happy to answer anything that you have.
One thing I noticed that was different from the 2 maps is the agricultural district or whatever came off the existing map and isn't on the second map. So can you tell me a little bit more about that? So
Yeah.
just assuming within the city limits, we're not going to have agricultural property, we want to change the use
Sure.
possibilities for those.
A lot of times, like if you go to the future land use classifications, we leave in districts just in case, if something were revert or you would have an opportunity to have a large hobby farm or like you get, 1,000 Oaks, something comes here that's wonderful. You always have that and you're able to change your comprehensive plan to allow for that. We did have an extensive discussion. I know the city is undertaking their UDO right now, but whether you want to allow for roosters or chickens or farm animals and kind of what are those domestic animal ordinances now. So we sat there. Go ahead.
Yeah, one thing that I'll add too, I think under the existing zoning districts, agriculture is listed as being like 40 acres plus. And with the existing land use maps, sort of where we're at right now, the amount of land that could be considered agricultural within the city limits was like negligible. I think that's one of the reasons why you're not seeing it is just because the amount of land that would be there is so small, if there's any at all.
Well, what made me ask is my property is a registered farm with USDA that's 26 acres.
Sure.
And it went from ag to mixed use. So I was trying to figure out, it made me think like what else went from ag to something else, and then I didn't see ag at all on the second one, so.
Sure.
Keep in mind that what they're proposing in the plan is not necessarily what's going to end up in the zoning map. 2 separate documents.
Sure.
So, we'll also have time to deal with some of those kinds of questions. Yeah, when they identify 67 acres of agricultural land within the city, and 40 is kind of the delineation, well, there are too many of those.
That came from Kim Heighton, who used to be the
county
planner, and he pushed and pushed and pushed. I thought that was a ridiculous amount of acreage for inside city limits. Well, but at that time, we also had the 2-mile fringe, so that has gone away, which is where most of the agricultural property was. But even still, 40 acres was. It was more than what the county's requirement was.
You can have a nice little hobby farm on a whole lot less than 40 acres.
Yeah, you can.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, you can do. I just wanted to make sure I understood like what happened to that and kind of what the reasoning is for getting rid of the agricultural designation, and then.
Did you want us to keep it? Is that what you're saying?
I don't know. I'm asking the question.
Yeah.
Trying to figure out what the rationale is, and if we ever. Had someone who wanted to voluntarily annex into the city that was currently agricultural land for future use, is there an opportunity for it to remain agriculture? Or would we instantly go to like one of these other districts that
Yeah.
have been proposed?
I don't know if you have your default as R1 when you annex property. A lot of communities have it where you annex property and it defaults to R1 zoning district till you find, or if you guys don't do that. We can always keep, it
We
like,
haven't annexed anything yet
for a long time.
since I've been here.
Okay,
Well, I'm thinking of a particular property out near the airport that a housing developer has been talking about wanting to possibly be annexed into the city. So, you know,
Okay.
if that came along, then there would
I
be
thought that was in.
potential for.
sure. I always suggest keeping all the future land use districts. There's some that were not heavily used, but could be an opportunity in the future. Keeping that ag district, if you read through the narrative, it talks a lot about like the continuation of existing farms or new farms being adopted into the city. So having that district, if you did annex something in and you want to change the comp plan, you can always pull from those districts to say this should come in as ag and look at some of those areas too.
And one thing
Yeah.
that I'll add to that is that as you start leveling up in the zoning classifications, what's the allowable things that are going on there? Maybe I should say the zoning classifications, the land use classifications. Under mixed use, by no means is that saying you cannot have agricultural in that area. So like you were saying, the continuation of uses is no issue.
Yeah.
It's not saying that you can't have that thing. It's a pretty broad definition, so, for mixed use zones.
Was there mention of transitional land use areas as well? I thought I saw that somewhere in here. I know
Yes,
that
that-
communities have used that to kind of handle the ag.
That kind of goes into our neighborhood commercial districts. There are transitional areas that we have identified that are able to have adaptive like reuse, revitalization, to have that walkable pedestrian commercial, neighborhood commercial. So we identify transitional areas. You could also identify some and put that narrative into your ag district as well.
You know, I'm old enough to remember when we had probably 7 or 8 little neighborhood groceries in Greencastle.
The IGAs.
Oh,
Yeah.
no.
Yeah.
No, I mean, even
corner
smaller
stores.
IGA,
Yeah,
you know.
okay. Yeah.
Sutherland's down on the south end, Lockwood's over here. I mean, there was one down on North Jackson Street. They were, almost every little neighborhood had a little store. And,
We've added that back in to where you can have it.
well, and then you go to Zionsville, you know, you go to Stonegate or something, and that's exactly how that's all set up. So, we're not Zionsville, but I think that's an interesting classification.
So you're thinking those classifications would fit in different categories?
Yeah,
Various ones.
especially too, as things change, we wanted to provide a map that was going to give you the most flexibility. We understand development's going to come in and you don't want to, tie it to one level. If it's only going to be commercial development or residential, you'll see mixed use, you'll see, new enterprise commercial, you'll see different things. If you read through the district and the allowable land uses, we spend a lot of time with staff to say, these are the type of land uses that we could foresee ever, becoming on this property and kind of going through the temperament of that. Yep.
The thing with land use maps too is that they're not, like, this is going to be this thing in 10 years. This is by no means like this has to become this thing. Things naturally progress, things change. It's more of a wide road with guardrails on each side, and whatever happens, on that 16-lane road,
Yeah.
things are flexible within there.
What I try to tell people is the comprehensive plan is a mirror for the zoning. It really guides what your zoning should be for that property. So as this body, if you have a rezoning come in next year, 6 months from now, and it's on a particular property, you're able not only to pull from the map, but, Blaine and Scott are able to pull from that narrative section and say, okay, this is what they foreseen for this district, these type of land uses, this type of architecture, this type of road, and they're able to put that in a staff report to this body and say, there's 5 statutory criteria when you look at a rezoning, and number 1's a comprehensive plan. So they're able to report to you to say, okay, this meets the comprehensive plan map, and it meets the intent and the purpose of that district, X, Y, and Z reasons. And so it helps this body to make those decisions, but it also gives you enough flexibility when you're trying to make a zoning map amendment decision.
I'm trying to think about how I want to jump into this because I have a lot of notes on the map. I really marked this up quite a bit. I noticed a few things on here that I think are just kind of like glaring, like we need to fix them. For example, Millstone Point, Zinc Mill, the apartments on Wood and Anderson are all listed as single family. I think those are probably should be multifamily because that's their current use, and I don't expect those to change. No. And then there were some other things, like, for example, the aviation homes aren't on there at all. And I don't know if there was a plan for that or if we were just writing that in as an option. And then
Those would be a use in one of those categories, correct?
Yes, and
So that
so,
would be under the zoning, or the allowable uses when we do the zoning.
David, as he goes through with the, oh, sorry to interrupt.
You probably wouldn't have 40-unit multifamily in a single-family dwelling zone.
We can change that. If there's a traditional multifamily that's existing use, happy to look at that if there's
Rachel,
something
I think this
They're
was one
spotted.
that Counselor Aguirre had pointed out.
Okay, that's no problem.
But it's still grandfathered, it would be grandfathered in as long as it continued to be used.
Yeah, but if
that way.
Parkwood Village burned down, wouldn't you think that it'd be reasonable for them to be able to rebuild?
Yeah,
And so in theory, you know, you'd have to come get variances, you'd have to do this, you'd have to do that. I think we should take care of that, you know, in the earlier stages of the UDO development.
Yeah, I also want to make sure that the UDO or whatever plans we build out, if they're being guided by the comprehensive plan, have accurate information.
Sure, absolutely. Regarding the hangar homes, I thought that was a wonderful idea. I loved even finding in the communities that had them and learning about them. And so if a project under the UDO, you know, David working on the airport district, if an appropriate use that's enacted by right, something that's permitted by right or something that's permitted by special use, I mean, there are some proximity distances with residences and runway with the state requirements, and David's well-versed in doing that. My point is, we'll make sure that if those hangar homes are written in the comp plan, that it gets translated, and Lori and the mayor will be able to see that when that gets written in the UDO.
yeah, we've had lots and lots of conversations about those.
Yeah.
So that's not something that was forgotten.
No.
Kevin, could you give us a copy of your map?
Yeah, I should probably make it more sensical, but I'd be happy to share. For sure.
Okay.
Make those changes in GIS.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you guys catch anything that's, hey, you know, that's traditional multifamily or that's a condo, you know, please let us know. Yeah.
We were catching stuff up all the way up to the last minute.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, that little part of town's that. So,
I think one of the changes that I got was like one singular parcel was maybe different than like the surrounding like 4 blocks. So I didn't want to like zoom as far as one single parcel.
Yeah.
I will say also on the map, one of the critical path strategies is to have like step downs from general business into single family, and I really just don't see it as much as I was expecting, I guess. And I know I was part of the planning process for this, but you know, there's just single family homes right next to downtown business, right next to University District. I would have expected a little bit more like moderate density, mixed use density than into single family. So I don't know if that like philosophical view is something that should be included or considered, but it just feels like it doesn't match what's written, if that makes sense.
We could do that, but to that point, since there's so much residential housing abutting those districts, we would take large swaths and make them legally non-conforming. And sometimes that's okay. It's like, what do we want in the future?
Yeah.
But how long is it going to take to get to that point? Because if a lot of these homes are viable and we don't foresee them moving anytime soon or being redeveloped, at the end of the day, it may not matter because they'll just continue to exist. But
Kind of like calling the big multifamily in single family and picking out that one property. But I think, you know, to your point, I know lots of folks who come to town who want to live in like traditional single family and be right next to DePaul or right next to the park.
Yeah. But mixed use wouldn't preclude single family housing, right?
No, or mixed density still can have single-family
Yeah.
existing, yeah.
And, I mean, just to throw this in, because I'm working with David Baird, who's our business development on the UDO, I'm also working with him on that. There are different definitions for single dwelling detached in the UDO. So there's not just the one definition of the single acre, lot. There's a couple different definitions of like what size lot can you have in still be small. So you can still have a small lot with a single dwelling attached, just to throw that.
Any other comments, questions?
Did you have more, Kevin? It's okay.
If you'll let me get nitpicky, yeah.
Yeah, go ahead.
I do have a few.
Really do.
I will say there's a few other things on there. Page 142 is a map of Brookville, Indiana, and not Greencastle, Indiana.
There's still a little bit of proofreading to do.
Yeah, I think there's a couple of those little things throughout, and I'm happy. I finally typed up some of my notes on this. I'm happy to share these as well.
Yeah, tell us those later.
Okay, yeah. Well, you asked, so that's why I jumped in.
That's really weird, because we've had
Yeah, we looked at it.
Okay.
so many
I'm sure there's a lot of sharing that happens.
Barnard is a city, I mean, Barnard has 2 homes.
Well, that's the thing too. You'll type those out.
Yeah, I can share them, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. I will say, I really, the critical path strategies, I think I'm in full agreement with. I think the overall thrust of the plan is good. There's just a lot of details that when I finally got into it, I noticed, so.
Well, my theory is, and I think the reality is that the plan is a guide map. The UDO is where the rubber hits the road.
Mhm.
And that's what that's a legal document, and this is not. So we want to look at this as something that, over the next 20 years, that we can look back towards and say, these things make sense, these things might not. And a lot of it makes sense, and a little of it doesn't, but that's okay, because we can ignore what doesn't, and we can seize upon what does. As time goes on and administrations change, whatever, and the boards change, so you want some flexibility in the document, obviously. I think it gives that. So
We try to write as many land use districts with flexibility as we possibly can, because, you never really know what's going to come in, or try to give you the best chance at, having the most scrutiny on an area, and look at the uses that you would want to see on that property. So I think it's a nice form shape of a bubble too, with some of the following property lines, and looking at, what's there now versus what could go. We try to, as Blaine said, try to limit the nonconformities, but also give you some flexibility, so that if you do see a property and you're like, there's a single family home and it's planned for a mixed use, that's not going to hurt that, because that's still allowed under that classification. Yeah.
Yeah, and that all makes sense to me.
Okay.
And yeah, absolutely. I want to make sure that as we're using this as a guide for future changes, that it's clear, and, if someone pulls up the map, they can look at it and be like, oh yeah, that makes sense, So.
Sure, absolutely. Yeah.
This document that seems to be limited to the existing city limits, is there anything in there that guides potential future growth?
The only thing I did put in some other recommendations is that if you were to consider annexation in the future, to do a capital, non-capital, almost an annexation study, to understand how does this affect I've done annexation studies all over the state, did one for Elkhart. How much police, how much fire do we have to, hire if we're going to annex? And, if even that wasn't the directive of this plan to annex, if you are going to look at compatibility considerations, is the next step before you annex, is having either that developer pay for that, but have a capital and non-capital services annexation study done, so you understand not only how does this affect us as a community of being small knit, growing, starting to kind of get outside that small community, also affect us financially 5 years down the road. because, you know, everything is crazy with inflation, with utility extension, and how long do those bonds take to pay back, and where are we at now with level of service capacity for firefighters, for police, you know, right, you know, doing those studies for the communities in Indiana. There's some people that one more drop and the water's going to come out. So understanding that. So that was really the only thing that's probably baked into this plan, is looking at an annexation study if you do choose to do that. If that makes sense.
Do we have any more comments before I read Gary's? And Jeff, you want to go through
Mine
your-
were just editorial, as long as they get them.
Well, like 231 versus 321 or whatever it was, you know, or State Road versus I caught that one. There's still some, like I say, some.
Yeah, but most of mine weren't content related.
And that's kind of what we find. Now, Gary has 4 points. It says on page 15, under flexible zoning standards, I don't like this statement. It seems like a way to get around zoning standards and seems to conflict with adaptive reuse of existing. And of course, as we watch House Bill 1001, we may not have a whole lot of flexibility in zoning standards coming up anyhow. So now apparently they've added an opt-out in that for a community, I think over 5,000 or something like that. So, you know, we may not be stuck with what the wisdom of the legislature comes up with. But do you have a comment on that, Rachel?
About adaptive reuse.
Well, he just says it seems like it's a way to get around, a flexible zoning standard is a way to get around zoning standards and seems to conflict with adaptive reuse of existing.
You know, looking at, you know, US 231, looking at Indianapolis Road, you know, a lot of what we discussed, and, you know, what I would say if Mr. Bowser was here is just right now you have a lot of legal non-conforming lots of record. And as a practical reality, any kind of future development that would come in kind of on your major corridors would require multiple purchases of parcels, combination of those parcels, and to be able to meet your setbacks for the zoning ordinances, even if they are. So what we were looking at, since this kind of the instance or kind of the stance of the plan was to look at revitalization, infill, redevelopment, looking at being able to, you know, take a corridor and give it some new life and be able to have new development and new development standards along there. That requires some flexibility and adaptive reuse standards and some flexibility in your ordinance, because as a practical reality, legally, you have lots of record that are quarter of an acre. The setback would never meet the front setback today. And so we're trying to understand as the future, as people redevelop your corridors and there is new life and new development, revitalization in your community, you're going to need that flexibility in your UDO to accommodate that. And so that's what I would say to that.
Or you're just going to have variance after variance after variance.
That, or two, you know, if somebody comes in that's going to purchase those and they see 15 variances and that they have to purchase, they can't, you know, get a height variance, or they don't have any flexibility on older lots of record. Those lots weren't intended to the scale of development of today. The old gas station that used to almost have the tank sitting on property lines, that doesn't go anymore. So it's trying to be able to work with those old lots with new development, especially as they're going to need to purchase 2 lots and combine them to do development, to meet the development standards.
Or also just sit and not get developed.
Yeah. It gives a little bit of incentives to help people to be able to do different development. You know, as you know, major chain retailers come in and they have a standard parking lot and a standard sign package. And so sometimes that gets a little bit challenging when you have older lots of record.
Well, in my mind, rigidity is a lot worse than flexibility. So, and then he says on point 2, future use map seems too simplified for unused land. Single, and he's got parenthetically, single/dwelling detached. I believe the current comp plan references existing zoning districts and isn't vague like this proposal. All infill areas are not the same. Need better details on this map. That's what a comp plan is for. I'm sure that isn't what the zoning ordinance is for, but
That kind of goes back into the land use district. You know, if you've got, single family on the future land use map, and you're Blaine or you're Scott and you're having to make a decision in the future, if you're doing new development, you've got guidelines to say, these are the type of uses that can go here, here's the type of architecture, here's the type of transportation you're able to have. As far as the existing section, those are allowed to continue. There's nothing that prevents those from continue to exist. It's really looking at the future for single-family development. It's not to kind of make any stance on different areas or varying areas throughout the city on existing single-family.
Point 3, all the studies on pages 80 and 84, what is their status? Are these going to be completed before the zoning ordinance gets revised? Once these studies are completed, what weight and statutory authority will they carry?
Garrett, if you don't mind giving me, I think that's probably the existing from the existing conditions report. Is that all the studies that are referenced, like the Parks and Rec?
Well, on 80 and 84, on the table document plan, those are two different passages.
Yeah, I think he's done.
But I'm even
It says
going,
pages 80 to 84.
Those are your first 5 passages.
Yeah, I think that's right.
Yeah, I don't know what studies.
well, I can't really find it either, but,
Don't know, the critical paths
A lot
have
of our
of-
goals and implementation is utility maps and, not really, more of an inventory than a study that's mentioned there.
that may be what he's,
That's the only thing I can infer, maybe.
Yeah, maybe like the sidewalk one that's in
Yeah,
the
maybe
sidewalk
he's thinking
inventory.
about the inventories as studies.
well, we just want
The sidewalk is mostly done.
Yeah, the
It will
sidewalk
be
work.
done soon, before the UDO is done. What other studies do we have going on? We already have a parking study that's done.
We have,
I don't know.
He may have been referencing all the action steps listed in those critical path strategies.
That's what I'm guessing too,
And it
yeah.
appears, from the way you've set this up, that those would be done as a part of updating the UDO. Is that?
Those are the steps to achieve it, the strategy, yep. Yes.
So like overlay districts, land development ordinances for transitional areas that for UDO.
Yeah, it's all for the UDO.
So I think the answer to one of his questions is those would be conducted in order to revise the zoning ordinance.
okay. And then, number 4, the functional class map on, I believe, page 142 and 143 doesn't match the current comp plan. Major collectors and arterials have been added. Doesn't look like it follows the 2023 Federal Highway, whatever, WA guidance on functional classifications, which is probably the best guidance out there. I was confused by it.
I'm more than happy, we take the hierarchy from the state level for the mapping. We looked, if, City of Greencastle had a thoroughfare map that classified, hey, this is a local collector, this is a minor arterial, here's what this is. You just don't have a up-to-date thoroughfare plan to call from, so we rely on the state data. I'm more than happy if he's got a map to kind of make those classifications. We can confer and look at the state data that we were given, no problem. I'm sure there's maybe something newer under that classification.
Yeah, well, I think Jeff had a comment related to that, didn't you, about
Well, the
how
comment
we
I
name.
printed out, that map's not even Greencastle, so, for the roadway classifications.
Yeah, on 142.
I would like to see one that actually is Greencastle. But
one because
Maybe, it must be something happened with the update on the load
Rachel, I
copy.
think it was one of the most recent drafts where that found itself in the packet, because one of the earlier drafts did not have that.
Yeah, I don't know what that would be. We have to like take a look at that, but
Yeah, I mean, that confused us.
Yeah.
why that got in there.
Where is
get
that?
that and send it to everybody.
Yeah,
It seems like a nice town.
that's really odd. I apologize. Like I said, we don't pick that up on that. Huh.
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, 240 is labeled on there too. It's interesting.
It's not even the right town.
Yeah, we don't even have that like stored in our map inventory. It's really odd.
Yeah, he's.
Something wacky.
He's referring to a previous version, I think, where we did have our map.
I have the old version.
And-
Previous comp plan had a thoroughfare.
But some of those things weren't accurate or the way they were actually built, and it doesn't have to be, because the comprehensive plan is a guiding document, right? So, I mean, there might be some variations.
Sure, and we're more than happy to look at the highway classification of it.
That's the actual plan right there. I brought my old copy.
Yeah, see, I knew
Yeah.
we had seen one.
So, yeah.
You need to
Thing
get
too with
an old copy.
that section, whether or not, I mean, obviously it's the wrong map, but if it even if it was the correct map, it wouldn't be a forecast into the future, it would be as is.
Current existing conditions, right? Yeah.
Well, if
Okay.
there's something that's not accurate, then I think he should tell us which ones are not accurate.
Well, Washington Street's not accurate. I'll tell you that.
Yeah,
Because on our old plan, it's showing the local road, and we just reconstructed it to a local
Right.
road.
yeah,
So it needs not be a major collector.
good.
Well, those are Gary's comments, we just wanted to.
Especially when this-
Yeah, and like I said, we're more than happy to like take these back and address anything that's not kind of content or decision-based driven and make those changes. And I'll be happy if you want me to respond to Gary and, well, Jeff's comments here too. If it's something that's just a quick fix, then we can do that. But if it's something they want a further explanation, we can send a response to, no problem.
And when you guys send this information to Rachel, your comments, if you could CC Blaine and then he can get with the rest of us. And I think you're probably the best person to have it all directed to.
Okay, what else do we have? Staff have any comments?
I think it's great. No, we took it through a pretty lengthy process. I think no plan is perfect, but again, this isn't binding, it's not contractual. It does give us something to work with to move towards the future. I think it makes a lot of improvements over the prior document. Our old comp plan does show its age. Our old zoning ordinance does show its age. So I think we're in a good place.
Scott, do you have any comments on it?
I'm particularly looking forward to the UDO, which is the standards that I'm going to be working with.
Right. I am too.
Yeah, and I think to that point, a lot of the foreseeable issues or concerns are really rooted in what would be within the UDO. Flexibility, a lot of that can be within accessory uses, not just residential, but commercial also. So I think that also provides an extra layer of flexibility with what we want to see in neighborhoods and commercial districts.
And we've started that process and putting together a draft. We're in what, chapter 2? Or 3, maybe? We're getting there, though. We're
You're
moving along.
cracking the book, yeah.
Moving along.
Yeah.
We'll be meeting this week.
Okay, so then what's the next step? Are you going to address the comments that have been made or will be coming to you and then coming up with a final draft, or?
That's up to you guys' comfort level. If you feel where you would like us to, pass this on with all the comments being denoted and revised, or if you prefer us to bring back everything corrected next month and table it, that's kind of your peril to do that, but we can do it either way. We have communities that will make the changes with the approval being forwarded to the council.
I'm just trying to think ahead to how to address all this with council.
I'd like to have a final draft.
I kind of would too, and, reflecting the comments that you either have or will come. And then, if we need to, next month in Plan Commission, if we need to maybe have you on a Zoom call or something, we can maybe do that.
Okay.
And
We'll
get
have to
everything.
have the public hearing on it, and so.
Will that be here or will that be in council? Okay. I kind of think that's the best way to proceed, so that it's clean when it goes to council, instead of us just saying, well, yeah, there's a few little markups to be done, but it's okay. Blaine says it's great,
Trust but verify.
You in trouble,
right?
Blaine.
Yeah, technically, I'm not even sure what the motion would be, because we wouldn't be able to list all the changes,
Yeah.
right? That would-
Yeah, I think at this point, we just need to tighten it up and respond and come back next month, and then let's make the decision.
Yeah, you have to anyway, so.
So that makes the most sense, so we will.
Do we need
not
to
have a motion.
move to table it till next month?
If we are required to make a motion tonight, then yes, we would have to table.
It was just for discussion tonight.
But this is just for discussion, so I really don't think that we need to, enter into anything other than just let's have something a little tighter to review, and then we'll vote on it and whether we'll pass it on.
And we'll get the ad in the paper for the public hearing for next time.
Okay.
So it'll be ready to go in final form.
Outstanding.
Okay, sounds like a plan.
Any other comments for Rachel or structure point staff?
We'll try to get the clean copy. We'll work with staff on what your packet date is. So if there's anything that's outlying or you go through it one more time, we'll try to make sure if give us a few days to make those corrections, we'll get the clean copy into your packets.
Very good, very good. Okay. Well, with that, we thank you all for coming and making your presentation and listening to us. In-house business, we have adoption of the 2026 calendar of meeting dates. I think that's in the packet somewhere, isn't it?
It would be the very last page.
My very last page is the preliminary plat.
Staff really appreciates you moving the meetings up to 6 instead of 7.
Yeah, I think 5:30, 6 o'clock's great for the meeting. Well, I don't have it. Wayne, do you have, Scott, do you have the proposed? Well, we meet the fourth Monday of every month. Quit laughing over there, both of you. How does everybody feel meeting the fourth Monday of every month at 6 o'clock?
Works for me.
Makes it simple.
Sounds good.
We need a motion?
I'll make a motion.
We have a second?
Seconded.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, fourth Monday of the month at 6 o'clock.
Do we need to worry about holidays right now? It's like Memorial Day is the fourth Monday.
Is that on? The way, as spotty as things have been, maybe we might not even have anything on the docket. So.
The packet, the dates that were in the packet had that meeting being on a Tuesday,
That's what
26th.
I thought there was a calendar, so.
There is.
Okay.
Whoever put it in there did their job.
Because I remember the Memorial Day. I tried to schedule it so we'd meet on Christmas.
Got nothing better.
It's
to do.
December 28th.
We could go caroling afterwards.
So if we move to approve, with a second by Kevin, to meet on the fourth Monday, could it be amended to
The
show
proposed
that in
dates.
May, it would be on the Tuesday.
Yeah. Are there any others, Eric?
Doesn't
December,
look
maybe.
like it. Yeah, they're all,
That was the only Tuesday.
Oh.
What's November and December look like?
November's the 23rd,
Yeah, it was
December's
on
the
the
28th.
So that's the
Thanksgiving this year.
Monday.
Monday before Thanksgiving.
Monday
after
before.
Christmas.
Yeah, the general.
Which is
Structure
always
change.
awkward. We rarely have meetings in November or December. Occasionally, we just have a minimum quorum.
Well, we've adopted the basics and the circumstances. We're going to be flexible, too.
Well, I have a motion and a second and a friendly amendment to include the
Memorial Day.
Tuesday in May, but there was no vote.
I thought,
I'll second the friendly amendment. How's that? Good vote.
outstanding. We'll call the question. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Okay. The final item on the agenda is adjournment. First, I'll ask, are there any other comments for the good of the order? Hearing none, do we have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Kevin? Do we have a second? Second by Linda. All in favor of adjourning?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? We're adjourned. Thank you, everybody.
They didn't elect me in.
Where you
Great
guys at?
process. Where are we located?
Thank you, the secretary.
Yeah, I would-
Oh, is that it?
Oh, sorry.
Actually, I think you're going to be chair next session.
Kind of a little bit between the. Oh,
So Dave, there was a
That area.
paper packet